We are here at the 18th Architekturbiennale in Venice.
This year's topic is the Laboratory of the Future by Lesley Lokko. We are focusing on exhibition design and the translation of critical topics to a wide audience.
How can they show architectural topics to a wide range of visitors? How can they provide input and become part of the change? And how can they help to create a more inclusive future?
For this, we went to 6 different pavilions to talk with them about their perspective. Let's see what they have to say.
So it is not an exhibition, it's an installation.
What we're trying actually is to not make an exhibition.
We try to not make an exhibition, but rather turn the pavilion into a place of everyday work and life.
It can be even a manifesto. So architecture can be many things today.
I think architecture should be a little bit less serious.
It is more like an art show in the sense that we're not showing any kind of architectural representations in that sense.
In our pavilion, it's about water, not just taking in consideration the scenario of scarcity of water in Portugal, and I mean in all around the globe, but also adding to this topic not just a problem or a question of how can we preserve, but how can we better distribute or better manage this element.
The project is called Utopian Infrastructure, the Campesino Basketball Court, and it's specifically tied to the land reform struggles from the 20th century in Mexico and Latin America, when land was redistributed, and so the state was trying to develop the countryside, and they built a lot of schools, and many of these schools had basketball courts. That's kind of the story of how basketball started appearing in the countryside in Mexico, and then since then, these basketball courts have been, appropriated, repurposed, transformed for all kinds of different things. And so we were interested in these transformations and these appropriations of the basketball court.
We want to make visible hidden work and labor that usually is not in the center of attention. We see it more as a reprogramming of the pavilion rather than an exhibition design. So each room has a function now. So we're standing in the workshop, which will be used as a workshop. As you can see, there's many tools here. And then just next to us is the washing room or sanitary room, which people can use now, so they can go to the toilet in the pavilion, which wasn't possible before, and which is kind of necessary in order to make it a place to work.
I am for the Nordic Pavilion bringing a mobile architectural library, the Sami architectural library called Kirjegumpi. It's a library that is on one hand a social space to discuss topics related to indigenous cultures and architecture, but it is also a library with 500 books and a lot of different research material that I have been gathering for 16 years now.
So it's a theater in the sense that it is space, a specific space, which is a space for gathering. It's quite generous in a certain way because it's an empty space which invites people, the public, but also performers, artists, architects, students, which will occupy it during the 6 months of the Biennale. It's an architecture to be occupied, waiting to be occupied in a way. It's an invitation.
So what we tried is to actually make a conversion of the pavilion.
The basic idea that the pavilion is divided in 2 halves. And there is a different use for the two parts. One is kept as exhibition space for the Biennale visitors, and the eastern part would have been devoted and put to disposal for the joining population. We have been asked, what will you do when this opening to the outside will not be allowed by the Biennale authorities? And then we said, then it's even more interesting, and it shows the problem more evidently.
City for the rich, city for the rich. Should I be a paint lover? City for the rich, city for the rich. Don't wanna blow my cover.
Yeah, I think the project here is more raising questions than giving answers.
And actually it refers quite, I think, well to the way Lesley Lokko develops her idea of the laboratory, in the sense that she says at certain points quite clearly that architecture should be experienced. This is why we call this theater, or we think of it as an utopian theater, in the sense that it awakens, or it is supposed to awaken desires.
Ziel also talks about the process. And actually the process is really important into the development of the architecture and the research. And usually as a researcher, you find your subject or your research at the end of your research. It's not something you say in the beginning, I'm going to search for this, and then you know where you're going to go. No, it's the opposite. And so this place here is really meant to be a place to research, experiment. We don't know where we're going to get.
So I would say that the theme of water is very complex because it brings sort of conflicts together. So we selected 7 hydrogeographies in Portugal, and each one of them will relate with different topics. So we are addressing the relations that man has been working on top of nature in order to better control or to better take profit out of the water, and we are questioning why this is happening and where this is leading us.
There was a starting concern of our project to produce an exhibition that is going to be accessible to all and that can bring architects to discuss thematics that are not on their daily based concerns, and on the other hand to produce proposition models and to produce future questions and future possible answers.
We never intended to solve every problem in architecture. I mean, in some extent, we are trying to have not a solution, but a suggestion, I guess. So, as we already explained, we wanted to give half of the pavilion to the public, and for us, this is a really important move, or would have been a really important move, to make the Biennale actually, because it is an institution with a lot of power in the city. And for us it would be important, or we would suggest that the Biennale is in this position should also have, follow its responsibility towards the city. And even though we didn't manage to open it, I think it's good the discussion about all these problems of course exists.
The basic thing is to make aware of this problem. The population is reduced from since the 50s from 175,000 people to 50,000. This is not the fault of the Biennale, but the Biennale is also working in this context.
Yeah, I think the connection to the city is quite an important part of it, since of course the Biennale is also a problem for the local citizens that want to keep Venice a livable place, because people cannot afford to live here anymore, and that's why the population is decreasing in Venice. And yeah, of course we're part of it with the pavilion and being part of the Biennale, but yeah, since we cannot tear down the fence, our strategy was to build up this network and work together with the local activist groups that try to maintain Venice a livable place.
This is a fragment of a court that we're showing at a international biennial. And then there's we're calling a propaganda kiosk, which is where all the information is broadcast from. It also has what we're calling a decolonial jukebox, which is a jukebox that people can pick audios from to be played at the pavilion. We are interested in the Campesino basketball court as a space for these contestations to happen, for these conflicts to emerge and to be solved. And then there are other problems and questions that that are worked through and solved on the basketball court. You know, there's one of the many is the kind of the interesting history of diaspora and immigration on the court.
I mean, this is an inclusive space.
The theater is made to have a few performances happening each month, and during these performances there is a whole range of different people coming from urban cultures but also from architectural schools. And I mean, the Ball Theater is really an invitation for a very large range of different cultures and community to inhabit it and to activate it.
Also the shape, you know, the circle, you know. Here we're like in a half of a sphere, but I mean the audience is recreating finally the other half of the sphere. So you can recreate a very close relationship between the audience and the performers. So it's really like you're really, I mean, you bring your arms together, you know.
It's also like a mirror ball, and it's also thought as a mirror of our possible future societies.
Maybe you noticed that there's a new entrance. Some people also didn't notice it because it's kind of integrated in the architecture that's already there. And for us it was an act of democratization in a way that everyone, people that have to come with a wheelchair or that pull like a trolley with cleaning tools or that come with a kinderwagen, they can use the same representative entrance as everyone else.
And what we're showing is not architecture made by famous architects, but these anonymous courts and their transformations. So that's our way of kind of making a way of thinking about space that's more inclusive.
We invite 100 more or less students from all around the world, from different faculties and different other approaches. And it's very important for us that we also share knowledge with them. So the youngest generation, because they will be the ones who will be responsible to actually provide the answers.
I'm very interested in creating a space that is welcoming. I've been sort of developing almost like a term for this project, which is the architecture of generosity. That is what we have tried to do here, me and my crew, to create a welcoming space, a space with a lot of smells, a lot of tactility, a lot of colors. It's a natural sort of extension of the topic of this project, which is a space for sharing knowledge and to explore the topic of indigenous architecture.
What is always important for us is to use what is there. That's why also the material from the last biennial was used to build all the furniture, and the half bridge or the staircase, as well as the scaffolding tribune, so the grandstand, it's all lent materials.
We did a couple of interventions on the pavilion, and we collected a lot of material from last year's art biennale, which didn't only serve our own interventions on the pavilion, but which will also be continue to be used during the duration of the biennale.
For me, this is nomadic architecture, and nomadic architecture needs to be very sensitive and responsive to the place. It needs to find the material on site to build and to construct. So for me, this project is exactly that. It is a project where we brought a few things from the north, and the rest we sourced here in Venice. The staircase here, for example, is built by a red cedar tree that was 4 meters away from the pavilion. The main heart, the table in the space is an old black stone that we found in the back of the pavilion that we dragged out, and James, actually the curator, washed. So it's the project is a combination of something I brought and a lot of material I sourced here in Venice and in the region around.
The theater is going to be mounted and unmounted, and we're going to, make it travel. It's a sphere. It's almost like a small little world, and it's just maybe going to other places in this world or in the universe. I mean, somewhere else. And it's also this idea of the desire of utopia. It's the idea of trying to find another place.
And so I think it's really an architecture as a work in progress, and contrary to an exhibition that has a beginning and a end, we don't know when the ball theater will end.
We design a lot of elements that are modular, that are made in a simply grid mesh that is not painted. The display has like a 3 points or 3 ways of seeing it. It's modular, easy to transport and light. It is reassembled or can be reassembled in for this show or for other hypothetical shows. And at the same time, it can be site-specific because although it looks very industrial and it creates this kind of contrast with the palace that also interested us. So we really aimed for designing minimal, logical, and essential display that could fit and it could help the narrative to be conveyed.
Girigumpi is a sort of self-sufficient project. It's built in a gumpi, which is a small reindeer herder's hut that has skis under it, so it can be pulled on the snowy landscape in the mountains. And it has been exhibited and shown and installed in very different locations, very often outside, even in the mountains. So coming here to Venice is a little bit of a detour for the project. It's a project that is designed and meant to be in the north, traveling between small places that it doesn't need the infrastructure of art galleries or exhibition spaces to be itself. So that in that case, Girigumpi is a very easy project to install in that way. It can land almost anywhere because it is a space on its own.
Hopes and dreams.
Architecture is not so much a métier to invent and to present new forms, new shapes, so that a lot of people says we haven't such a thing we never have seen before. But it has to do with the behavior and the feeling of people inside the environment that is created by man, and the most elementary moves of and interventions of architecture are separating on the one hand and connecting on the other hand.
I think it would be good if, in a way, architecture could always enable people to become active, like these activists that we got to know do now. So it has to do with like self-empowerment and also, maybe a financial means and the possibilities to engage with the city. So I don't know if there's a way that architecture can promote this. It would be ideal. And that maybe architecture can also be understood more like a caring practice, which doesn't mean that we cannot design anything, but that these restrictions kind of are a driver for creativity.
We need to be more conscious about the power of our own voice. And the position we want to stand for, and actually the power of our voice when we are in this privileged position. So each one of us, even if we are not really directly connected with housing or building or construction or even the landscape, we are all part of this ecosystem. So we are all, our ecosystem, our planet, our safe place is actually in danger.
I think the world of architecture needs to critically reflect upon itself and be less serious about themselves. And I think that we need to listen. And I think the sense of listening and the concept of listening is something that will really open gateways to a better, sustainable future in architecture.
Brushed my hair, went downstairs. Favorite jeans on my hair, and I looked in my mirror, and I said, "Who's that there? Who's that there? In that mirror? I don't care, and they're aware. Now I see just why they stare. I just pay them, I don't care. I know. So what? I got an attitude, bitch. I got an attitude. So what? I got an attitude, bitch. I don't sleep, I don't smoke. On my way made up plans, the juvenile came on. You know that's my favorite song. I was 15 minutes late because I tried to They said what you gonna take. I said I want a bigger plate. So that lady pour my drink. Then I went up on my rate. I could see the bitch was fake. So like chopper I escaped. And I told her oh no, like my ex you got to go. I want all my money up front. If you don't, guess what? I'm gonna have an attitude. Bitch, I got an attitude. So what I got an attitude? Bitch, I got an attitude. So what I got an attitude? Bitch, I got an attitude. Attitude, 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 When they ask me where I've been, busy. When they ask me how I live, the city. I don't own a welcome mat. Give me the proper feet to stand at. I don't own a welcome mat. Give me the proper feet to stand